So right now when we look at this graph, we're looking for three things. What is the amplitude, what is the period, and is there reflection? From there we can just graph our normal sine curve. So as we look at this, first off for the amplitude, the number out front being multiplied by the trig function is always our amplitude. So we know we have an amplitude of 3. For the period, that is the number inside the function. So right now we have this x over 4. So first off, anytime you see a fraction like that, this is the same as saying 1/4 times x. So this means our b value is 1/4. In order to find the new period of the graph, you do 2 pi divided by b. So in this case, we're doing divided by 1/4. Now whenever you divide by a fraction, multiply by the reciprocal. So we have 2 pi times 4 over 1, which means the new period of this graph is 8 pi. And then lastly, neither the 3 or that 1/4 is negative, so there's not going to be any reflection. So now to use this to build our graph. For these graphs, whatever the period is how far we're going to go out on both ends. So we'll go out to 8 pi and then to the left 8 pi. We need a point every fourth. So we want to divide our graph up into fourths. And now we need labels for each of these points. So the way I always like to do these, first do that halfway mark. 8 pi divided by 2 is 4 pi. Now divide that by 2. 4 pi divided by 2 is 2 pi. So now if you can just get that third mark, think if we move 2 pi each time, we go 2, 4, 6, 8. They should all be evenly spaced. Whatever you have on the right, same thing on the left. So negative 2 pi, negative 4 pi, negative 6 pi. So that gives us our horizontal markings. Now we need vertical. So for our amplitude, first off we can think the middle of our graph is at 0. We aren't doing any translations yet. The amplitude is the distance from the middle to the top, and then the middle to the bottom. So if an amplitude of 3, that means our graph is going to go up 3 for the top, and it's going to go down 3 for the bottom. Now it's just a matter of following the regular sign or pattern for sine. So a sine graph starts in the middle, so we can start with our point in the middle. And right now our starting point is just right there on the y-axis. When you go over a point, the sine graph goes up to the top. When you go over again, it comes back to the middle, down to the bottom, up to the middle. So there's the right side of the graph, and it's going to do the same thing going the other way. So just reverse it, down to the bottom, middle, top, middle. And there is your sine graph. Okay, we're going to follow our same pattern on this one. First for the amplitude, it's just that number out front being multiplied by sine. So in this case, our amplitude is going to be 1/2. Next for the period, we use the number in the middle. So this time b equals 4, which means to find the new period, we do 2 pi divided by 4, and just reduce that. So our new period of this graph is going to be pi over 2. And then again, there's no negative, so no reflection. So for this one, again, use your period. That's how far you're going to go out on both sides. Now this one we have to do a little more thinking as we come up with our markings. So first do that halfway mark and think pi over 2 divided by 2. And you'll get used to this pattern in a second. That means pi over 2. Technically this was 2 over 1. So times 1/2, which means pi over 4. In general, whenever you divide a fraction in half, you're just doubling the denominator. So to use that trick, to divide pi over 4 in half, 4 times 2 is 8. So half of that is pi over 8. Now to get that third marking, we have 1 pi over 8, 2 pi over 8. So this is going to be 3 pi over 8. Same markings on the other side. Okay, so from here, now we just need to use our amplitude. Get rid of those extra marks so it doesn't look confusing. Okay, for our amplitude is 1/2. So that just means we're going to go up to 1/2, and we can just label it to make it easier, and down to 1/2. So again, 1/2 top of our graph, bottom of our graph, and middle of our graph. Now we just follow that same pattern again. Sine starts in the middle, so our first point is going to be at 0, 0. Then it goes up to the top, back to the middle, bottom, middle. So there's 1/2, reverse it to the left, bottom, middle, top, middle. And there's your sine graph for that function. Okay, last one here, same idea again. For the amplitude, it's the number outside, so your amplitude is just 2. For the period, we do 2 pi divided by 3. That cannot reduce at all, so our period is just 2 pi over 3. And for this one, there is a reflection because that negative on the outside. So yes, a reflection. Technically, that a negative on the outside is over the x-axis. Though as we know with sine, it does not matter if it's inside or outside. What this reflection is going to do is instead of going up first, we'll go down first. So we'll just follow that different pattern for the graph. So now set everything up. Our period is 2 pi over 3. So those are the labels you want on either side. Now, to divide 2 pi over 3 in half, think if we have 2/3, half of 2/3 would be 1/3. And then half of 1/3, just multiply that denominator by 2, would be 1/6. So now just count your way over. Technically this is 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, and 4/6. However, 3 over 6 reduces to 1/2. So this would be a pi over 2. So again, when you're doing these labels on your x-axis, it's all about fractions. So then labels are the same on both sides. Now our amplitude is 2, so the top of our graph will be up at 2, bottom of our graph down at -2, middle of our graph is still at 0. So now, the last step is just to graph it, starting in the same place. So again, we start on the y-axis, sine starts in the middle. Because of this reflection though, we're going to go down first, so pi over 6, we're down at -2, middle, top, middle. So all that reflection does is change which direction you go to start. So now use what I was going through in these 3 examples and try the 3 on the next slide on your own and bring them in tomorrow.